says,
oh, we're live? Okay, great. All right, we're live. Okay. You just got to roll with the punches, man. You just got to be ready for anything.
I know.
All right,
I
so
know.
we're so happy that we're live. So we actually are on YouTube, but we're streaming through Zoom, and this is the very first time for me. So thanks so much, you guys, for being patient with us. I am Wendi Blum, and I have a super special guest who's a good friend of mine who's here with me tonight. And we really wanted to come on live, and we wanted to do this because most of us are home in quarantine and we're going through these very turbulent times. So we want to bring as many resources as possible to share. And today, whenever you're watching this, we are sharing 5 books to read during crisis and quarantine. And I'm doing this with my very good friend, Kate Volman. And I just want to talk about you for just a moment, Kate. I've known Kate for, 12 years or so. And she is someone I have always so much admired. She is an author, a leadership coach. She coaches corporate clients, and she has just run the Boca Raton Chamber. She's always involved she sits on the board of this and that, and she always has her hand in so many different projects, and she runs a podcast, and she does everything with grace, and she does everything with enthusiasm, and she is an avid reader like I am. We're both obsessed with reading books, so happy to do this podcast, this show with you today. So, hey, Kate.
Well, thank you, Wendi. And yes, the feeling is very mutual on your end. I feel like, I'm just trying to keep up with you these days.
Well, right now, are such unusual times, and we are going through a lot of stressors. And that's why Kate and I wanted to come on here. We have time for our personal growth. We have time to really spend some time in self-reflection and really, reevaluate our direction, really, into this new normal. So we're both really looking forward to sharing these 5 books. And I'll go ahead and jump in. So I'll give one, and then Kate, you'll do one, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first book I want to share, I actually am using Audible. So I'm going to share it with you here on Audible. And that is Anti-Fragile. And the name itself sort of gives it away right there. The author is Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And Anti-Fragile, well, just that name says, okay, I need more of that during this time. And I like that it sounds different than being fearless. And it's really about the book, the subtitle of the book, it's things that during time of disorder. And really that's this time now. And this book was written years ago and written for the unpredictable things that are going to happen in our lives. And the author has written several books along this line. And what I want to share too is you definitely want to stay to the very end, because the 5th book that we're going to share is a book that is a favorite and a must read, both by Kate and I. So we're going to talk about that as our book number 5. But book number 1, Anti-Fragile, I think really allows us to wrap our mind around what it's like to actually grow our endurance, and to think about all the events that go on in life that really, like when we go through a challenge, I think about the hardest times in my life. I think about, I want to say about 15 years ago, I was in a really bad relationship. And I didn't think I could get out of it, actually. I sort of felt stuck. It's not sort of, I definitely felt stuck. I felt like that was it. And I couldn't break up with him. Can you imagine that, someone has a successful career, like thinks, to the outer world looks like everything is okay. But in the inner world, you're like, oh my God, I am completely falling apart. And you're shaking your head, Kate.
No, I just can't even imagine. And it makes me feel for those people that are going through that now while they're in quarantine with somebody that they wish they weren't, or they wish they were getting out of a relationship with someone, or wish that they had gotten out of it before now when they're kind of stuck in that situation. So it just reminds me of all these horrible stories of people, calling these helplines because of abuse, because of things that they're dealing with. That So as you're saying this, it just pains me to think about so many people that are in those situations currently.
And they don't feel like they really can't get out, like right now
Right.
we're in quarantine together, and our heart goes out to anyone that is in that circumstance. And even though I wasn't in quarantine 15 years ago, I felt like I couldn't get out. I felt like
Yeah.
there was no out. I felt like I couldn't walk out that front door. And times like this allow us, like, to think about being anti-fragile. It was actually through 9/11. It was the day after 9/11 that I actually, so it was more than 15 years ago, that I actually had the chutzpah, the nerve, the courage, that I became anti-fragile. This book is filled with so many parables, so many stories of people that, like, when strength is your only option, that that's when you build that muscle. I think that we are going to come out of this like anti-fragile. Like, we don't want to be
Mhm.
fragile. Fragile is like you just like fall apart. And that's kind of what my life was. And so in listening to this, like, every chapter, sharing stories, like relatable stories from history, because if you go all the way back in time and you think of, just everything that we've been through, and if you're listening to this and watching this, what you've been through, the challenges that,
Mhm.
to remember what those challenges were, and that you were able to get through them to the other side.
Yeah. That's cool. It's funny. I have heard of that book and a few people have recommended it to me. And then I think I read it somewhere in like a list of books for entrepreneurs to read. And now that you're saying it, I feel like, how like marketers say you have to hear a message 7 times before you actually take action. I feel like maybe this is my seventh time, because I am now going to get that book and read it, because of, I just think that the message, no matter what time, what period, or what journey, where you are in your journey, it is a good thing to remind ourselves of. So I'm kind of excited to read the book now.
If you were watching this, love to hear if you do go get the book, if you've read the book, what you thought about the book, the impact that it's had in your life. And if you go out and get the book, to come back and share, um, your takeaways of the book. And I just want to throw something out there. I don't know, this is very spontaneous, but we're doing live stream, so it's spontaneous. So I'm just going to throw a contest out there, just kind of out of the blue. We're talking about uncertainty and it's just kind of random, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there, that for the first person that comes back and gets the book, and, well, okay, then they then will get another book from the list, because they won't get that book because they already read that book. But then we will gift them one of the other books.
Ooh, we should give them the fifth book that we're going to talk about,
Oh,
since
I
it's,
love that. Okay, so the fifth book.
yes.
And actually, that fifth book I have given to two people last week. That book, that's our favorite. I have sent them the actual physical book from
Yep.
Amazon. I sent it to two people last
That's
week.
awesome. It's the best. And we'll talk about that. But all right, good. Okay, that's a strong start, Wendy. That is a strong, strong start. It was funny. I was looking around my place today knowing that we were going to do this, and I'm like, "Oh, there are so many great books that I want to share." It was hard to pick just two, and I kind of wanted to be just kind of in the nature. I kind of picked one book that I think is kind of helpful for sure during this time, and then one that's a little bit less, but it's very impactful. So the first book that I picked that I think is like amazing and life changing, and especially now with being in quarantine, is James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Ah,
And I love this book because It's the subtitle, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. And this is one of the best books, and it's just people have raved about it. I forget, I think it came out a couple years ago. And the reason why, obviously, it's a great book to read now, because in what we're dealing with now, having a routine, keeping a routine, being able to do positive things for us, like both physically and mentally. Wendi, you're so amazing at helping your clients, like, have those habits around their mental habits of what they're saying to themselves, how they think, all of those pieces. So this book is different than a lot of the productivity books or habit changing books, because he really gets into the root of the problem and helps figure out what you need to kind of associate with different habits, what you need to do. Like, he gives you really practical steps and advice on how to build better habits. And I love that he gives you the steps, but he also talks about the psychology why you haven't been able to do it yet. So you kind of understand why you haven't been able to build these habits. And so I love that. And one of the things that I wanted to share, at least one takeaway to maybe entice people to read the book. He has this thing called a habit scorecard. And it's really easy. He basically says you make a list of all your daily habits, like everything that you do. And then you ask yourself, is this a good habit? And if it is, then you put a little plus next to it. Is it a bad habit? Then you write a negative sign next to it. And then if it's a neutral habit, you write an equal sign. And this just gives you an idea of the habits in your life, which ones are good, which ones are bad. And now you can kind of work towards the things that you want to change. And Wendi, I'm sure you know the actual percentage, but what is it? The percentage of our daily actions that are subconscious?
Oh, well, our subconscious mind is ruling 80% of our day. So we're
Right.
an autopilot. So whatever habit that we had, last year and the year before and the year before is the most likely habit that we're going to continue unless you decide to break the pattern. And by
Yes.
reading the book, that's making a decision right there, like that you're all in, that you're committed.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I love the book, especially when you know the psychology behind like our minds. You're like, hey, if you put these habits into place, like you then just do them. And they're such simple things. Like, I mean, he talks about moving. If you turn on your TV every time that you come home instead of going to the gym or working out, like put your TV in another room, unplug it, like make you actually have to work for watching TV instead of doing something else, because you're probably not going to do it. Right. So anyway, there's a lot of really practical tips in there. It's a beautifully written book. And I know I'm not alone in that, because it just, people rave about it.
Yeah, he's just a great writer.
He
James
is.
Clear. His name. Don't you love that someone's name gives you a hint to really who they are? His last name is Clear.
You're right.
Clear. You have to absolutely love that he was named this name, right? Clear. So to get really clear about your habits and
Yep.
I just
Oh, that
totally
is
love that.
perfect.
I
He
think
was.
about that all the time when it comes to names. So, okay, are we ready
Yes.
for
Number
book number
3.
3? All right, so I'm going to show book number 3 again on my Audible app that I'm such a big fan of. And well, it is actually a book by the same author of Anti-Fragile. So you know how you
Oh,
kind of binge watch
yep.
your favorite actor over and over again, you might be binge watching right now on Netflix or on Hulu or something. So Nisam Nicholas Taleb, Taleb. The book is The Black Swan. So he's written a series of books along the same, theme, which is uncertainty,
Yep.
crisis, moving through challenges, and the black swan. And when you even think about a black swan, like the definition of a black swan, already it's so unusual, it's so unpredictable. There was a friend just this past week who had posted her white swans that are on her lake. I mean, she's quite fortunate, obviously, that she has this kind of property. And she actually has a pair of swans, white, beautiful swans, but a black swan really stands out like, oh, that's a really unfortunate, unpredictable event that happens. And so when you think about the pandemic and you think about, something that happens like every 100 years and we haven't lived through it. So it's not even something that is in our psyche. It's not even something that's in our subconscious mind. And it gets your wheels going, thinking about Black Swan, that it's not just preparing for the things that like we study the things, this happened and then this happened and then this happened and this happened, and they're mainly like favorable things or little blips. But he takes it in reverse, where you think about the things that you don't think about, the mistakes of not thinking and what that cost us and how that happened. Because if you spread it, so interesting, and I'm doing this right now, if you spread a timeline all the way from the 1300s or prior all the way up to now 2020, and you start looking at all the events. But because we're not living 120 years to have all of these experiences, we don't have the experience of it, and then it comes as this big shock to us, and it's so disruptive. But it doesn't have to take us down. And I think that's the most important part. If we can train our brain that these things don't like put us in a frozen panic, can't move, can't think kind of mindset, that these things, these Black swans, they exist, so that they become a filter and a way to look at things that actually through the Black Swan events becomes the innovation that through the Great Depression and through the pandemics become, the new companies. Like half of the Fortune 500 companies came out of the Great Depression. And so when we think of that, like we can at least, even though we don't know what the future looks like and it can feel so uncertain and it can feel scary, it's a stressor. And he talks about like through stressors that like if you're working out your muscle and you want to really like grow your muscle, you have to stress the muscle. You have to take your weights up to the highest level so that you're breaking down so that you can create. So I just love the philosophy around that and the thinking around that.
I love that you picked that book. And the reason why is because I almost picked it as well. So I'm glad that you picked it and I didn't, because we actually didn't talk about this before we jumped on the call.
We didn't talk about this.
So we almost had two of the same book, but instead of just keeping at the fifth. So yeah, that is a really great book. And it's funny. I think I did know that it was the same author as Anti-Fragile, but that's funny that now I'll do the same thing. I'll listen to Anti-Fragile.
I'm gonna show what it looks like right there.
Yep.
So that's what it looks like right there.
And that I actually did read, quote unquote, read on Audible. So, all right. So great pick. So the next book that I chose, it's kind of, I just think it's helpful to not, I mean, I kind of always go back and forth with like what books to read, right? I think that's like the biggest thing. That's why I love book recommendations from people, because everyone's at a different place. Everyone's kind of looking for something different. Are you looking for something entrepreneurial? Are you looking for something to enhance your skill in a certain area? Book recommendations are hard because books provide different things for different people. So this book, I think, is one of the best books. And one of the reasons I love it is because you can literally pick it up and get something really amazing out of it, no matter where you flip open. So it's a huge book. Tools of Titans. Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. And the reason why I chose this book is because, again, there's a lot of self-reflection going on and there's a lot of kind of figuring things out. And this book I love because, as you've probably heard, success leaves clues, right? Like success leaves clues. And Tim Ferriss, an amazing, incredible entrepreneur himself and writer and speaker and investor and all
An
these things.
investor. Yeah.
He's like everything. And he started this podcast and started interviewing these really interesting, successful people in all areas of life, from comedians to entrepreneurs to investors to scientists to researchers. I mean, to Navy SEALs, like all of these incredible people. And what he did was he took all of those interviews and like turned the best principles and the best things that he learned from them into this book. The subtitle is The Tactics, Routines, and Habits of Billionaires, Icons, and World-Class Performers. And it's just such an incredible book because his podcast is awesome. And to have a book where like all the like best pieces are like in there from each of his interviews. I mean, that took a lot to curate that and to kind of break it down into those bite-sized pieces. And I just love it because I open this book to whomever, or you can even look in the back and see, oh, who did he interview that I would want to learn more about? And you just learn something. And I think at this time, it's just so important for us to, as some people are reinventing or trying to figure stuff out, look, yes, we're in a very different time and we're going through this, but depending on where you are in your journey, if you're still able to work and you're doing business and all those things, these ideas are great. They might spark something. They might spark an idea in you, something you want to do, something you want to try. And so yeah, I just love this book. It's definitely one of those that you can just like pick up before you go to bed and read a couple pages and you're like, actually maybe not before you go to bed, because then you're going to want to get out of bed and like start doing something kind of like work, because you get so inspired by all the people that are doing incredible things in the world.
That book, I give away most of my books after I read them. So I don't hold on to my books. I actually pass my books forward. And that book, Tools of Titans, I actually still have on my desk. And the other phone is ringing right there. So, this is my life. This is what happens, right? So obviously we're not going to answer. But yeah, it's a great book. So I love your pick. Okay, so we've actually done 4. Can you believe we've done 4 already?
4 awesome books, and number 5.
So number 5, Kate and I both said right out of the gate that this is our all-time number 1 pick to read right now. To read, like I think both of us read the book a while ago.
Yeah.
But to reread in particular right now. And I will say that there were a couple nights back 5 weeks ago where I just woke up in the middle of the night. I just couldn't go back to sleep. And I listened to a couple chapters while being up at night. And it just, what it does is, now you're wondering what the book is. What is the book? What is
yeah.
All right, okay. So it is, the obstacle is the way. So not the obstacle and the yikes, but the obstacle is the way, by Ryan Holiday. And I know you want to add something to that too.
I'm just, honestly, I just love Ryan Holiday. Like, it's so, I just think it's crazy to just like, there are certain authors that that just resonate with you, that, and obviously a lot of people, that's why he is such an incredible writer, but he is definitely one of my absolute favorite writers. I remember reading The Obstacle is the Way, and just for not the first time, but one of the first times that I really felt like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, he is speaking directly to me. Like, how did he do that? Like that real feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. He gets me. Like, it was just like a crazy, he's just such a wonderful writer. All of his books, right? Like The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy. His newest book, Stillness is the Key, that like is another great one for right now. Like, his words just are so, every line is just impactful. And that's what great writers do. They just kind of get rid of all the mess, like all the words that aren't necessary, and they just keep what is. That's what makes them so powerful. So Yeah,
Now,
man.
I love his background. I love how he got involved in it and why he's such a good writer and why he's so good at the structure, the layout of the book. So he like pulls you in and he started writing in his 20s. So he started writing very, very young and he was doing research. I think he was doing research for Robert Greene. Is that?
Robert Greene.
Yeah,
Yep.
so for Robert Greene, who is also a phenomenal writer, who has so many great, great books. But so as a researcher, and one of the things that like really stood out for me is that while he's like he does a lot of research and he does a lot of reading, and because he's got this wealth and this bandwidth of like being able to absorb and integrate so much information and then process it in a way that it's retrievable and he can systemize it in a way that can deliver it to the layperson so that we can actually take the material and integrate it too. And so he has this exercise, and then we'll kind of jump into the book a little bit, but he has this exercise that I've actually incorporated, and I'm really incorporating it now, in particular during quarantine, which, and you and I just did a video on journaling and journaling prompts. I love journaling. I love the process of journaling. He talks about doing research and then keeping note file cards, because Robert Greene did the same thing. And I also believe that Tim Ferriss does something similar as well. So using note cards, like, so I keep,
Yeah,
for
that's
example, look,
yes.
here are note
Yes.
cards, and then put them in categories so that when you read a book and there's like a certain subject line, let's say it's perspective, right? Or whatever it is, like this is anti-fragile and this is the obstacle is the way, so that you have like a system and you're not going through different books and journals. And maybe we'll come back and we'll actually do a YouTube video on the system, because it looks like we both really love the system.
Yeah.
But that's what one of the things I just love, that he pulls back the curtain and he talks about his process as well, because there are a lot of writers that follow his work. I mean, you write, I write, we are in the community of speaking and personal growth and all of that, and coaching in the coaching world. So how we can keep raising our standards and how we can keep getting better and how we can remember so much and retain so much. And then as teachers, be able to teach the material and go into the nitty gritty of the material.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. This is so funny. See, this is just more and more reasons why we get along so well. We like just subscribe to all the same things. I'm like, yep, I pulled this out for my little, that is so great. Yeah. Very, very interesting. And actually, I have another one of his books, The Daily Stoic, which I know we both enjoy.
Yeah, and his daily journal. So he has a daily journal where you write in the morning your reflections, and it is very oriented to overcoming obstacles. So it's so it's a different way of thinking, where it's not that you just think positive thinking.
Mm-mm.
And you have positive visualization meditation, that you actually allow the obstacle, that you actually allow the worst case scenario come in, so that you can be prepared. And being prepared then gives you confidence. And if you have confidence, you're prepared, then you're going to have the stamina to get through whatever it is that you need to get through, even in your darkest day, that you have a roadmap, because it's not shocking. It's when you get shocked and you are frozen in fear, that you can't really think clearly and make good decisions.
Yeah.
I love about his work.
I agree. This has just turned into a little Ryan Holiday love fest, and I'm not disappointed in it. I love introducing him to people, because it's just, there are certain writers who are just like their work, they are perennial sellers, right? Like they just stand the test of time. You can read this book, you'll read this book 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and it's
so many gems in it. There's just
so many
gems in it.
I love it.
So
I feel like these are 5 solid books for people, and I'm sure that some have read some of these, but there's got to be at least one out of the 5 that is new to people, I would hope.
Yeah. And also, just a reminder about the contest. I want to read some of the companies because I jotted them down that actually were born out of the Great Depression. Well, or some sort of like black swan
Right.
event. So UPS at the Panic of 1907, and then Hewlett Packard after the Great Depression, Charles Schwab after the 1974 crash, and Coors, the Depression of 1873, Costco, the recession of the 70s, Revlon, the company Revlon, the Great Depression 1932, General Motors, the Panic of 1907, and then Procter Gamble, the Panic of 1837, United Airlines 1929. So I mean, it's just amazing when you think about that. So how many innovative ideas and companies are going to be born out of this
Yeah.
time?
So, and I'm gonna just add to your list, Wendy, because the startups that were founded during 2008, like that, the Great Recession,
Yes.
are companies like Dropbox and Uber and Groupon and Venmo and Instagram. Like,
Goosebumps.
it's
Yeah.
crazy how many start with, just, and look, it's a different world too. There's going to be companies that are just able to do their business in a different way and have different revenue streams and figure out different ways of delivering stuff. I think what's interesting to see in the event space, the event space is going to be very different right now. I think Facebook just announced that they're not going to have any like large events, like company events or conferences or anything like that, until June of 2021. So we are definitely in a place of having to reinvent what that looks like. And there's a lot of companies that are already doing that and trying to figure that out. So, I look at some of my friends who speak for a living. That's what they do. That's their bread and butter. So what are they're going to have to really figure out how to present like this in an engaging enough way that people are going to still want to have them come on their stage or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
right now, if it's relevant, if it's like for a specific group, if you have a niche, if you have an idea, like right now is the time because it's there's a lot of forgiveness, there's a lot of
yeah.
flexibility, so you can get out there and you can test, kind of like what we did, even starting on this live stream here today. You just are going to figure it out while you're doing it. Like you can't
Yeah.
wait for perfect anymore, and vulnerability is kind of the new like in thing, so you can show yourself and you can be vulnerable and you can be imperfect and you can be authentic and you can be yourself, and just kind of roll with it. And people want to see that. We don't want to see slick anymore. We don't want to see like content marketing that is super like fancy and well done. We want real stories, real people, and we want to have real conversations. And that's what I think we're doing here today. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I'm just, for those that have watched here to the very end, we are just so grateful and love you guys, and want to bring, like, we're open. We want to bring like a lot of value. We want to
Yeah.
bring resources. We want to bring tools. We want to open the conversation for bigger ideas. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks to everyone for watching. And
can I?
Wendy,
So I'm gonna link Kate Volman. I'm gonna link her YouTube below. So subscribe to her channel. She's awesome. She uploads new videos 2 to 3 times, maybe more. I don't know. She's uploading a lot of really great content on leadership and just book reviews like this, and journaling like we did. So many great ideas and content. So you'll connect with her on her website. And thank you guys so much. If you're new to my channel, subscribe here. And we look forward to hanging with you live stream again.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much, Kate,
Thank you, Wendy. We'll do it again soon.
for sure.